All right, looks like we're live and we can start our live sharing session, live stream event. So welcome everyone. And I'm happy to host it today and to talk about very cool topic that we haven't discussed before, which is innovating in corporate startups. Today we have a guest, Yarra Vilne. She's the Associate Director of Product at HelloFresh, and she'll be talking about this topic, showcasing building the pet food at HelloFresh. But before I hand it over to her, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Elena. I'm the Operational Excellence Manager at Product People. I have been with Product People around 1 year. And as you can see, I have been doing diverse topics for the last 4 years. But I'm especially excited to join this live stream today because I also have been doing corporate stuff and trying to do some innovations. Therefore, I'm very much looking forward to hear from Yarra what she has to present today. And yeah, when it comes to Product People and what we do, we have principles, company principles, and one of them is sharing knowledge generously. And we do that via interim product management, product leadership, and product ops. So that's basically how we make money. But also we created the largest PM community in Europe, which is 33 over K members all over the world, actually not only in Europe. And we curate these free events and give talks weekly basis. So before we start, we actually want to get to know you. And I would invite you to join the QR code so you can just scan it and answer the question. And the question is, does your company have more than one business vertical? And I'll give you around 1 minute to answer it. If for some reason the QR code doesn't work, you can also go to the website and enter the code. All right, I see the answers coming in. Give you another half a minute. All right, looks like so far the answers are going 50-50. So it looks like this topic will be super relevant to some of you. And yeah, then I would suggest that our guest Yarra takes over and that's her presentation. Yarra? Thank
All
you.
right.
Yeah, perfect.
Hope you can hear me and see my slides. But hello, everyone. My name is Yara. I am currently Associate Director of New Ventures at HelloFresh. And today my topic is innovating in a corporate startup and building a pet food service for HelloFresh. So we're going to talk about why innovation matters, even if your company has made it, whatever made it means to your company, how we put that to practice in HelloFresh, and my personal learnings while doing that. And not to forget, thank you, Product People, for having me and for hosting and for giving back to the community. So, a little bit about my product journey so far. So I started out product in Market Logic Software, which is a B2B SaaS company. I later on moved to WeShare, which is now part of Miles, but it was formerly owned by Volkswagen. And WeShare, for those who aren't familiar, was a electric car sharing business that is owned by Volkswagen. And then HelloFresh, which I'm now a part of, HelloFresh Group to be specific, is a food solutions group catering to different food needs. We're now a public company with more than 10,000 employees. And the reason this topic is so dear to my heart is because in the last two companies that I've worked for, both situations, I'm in a newer venture that is part of an established company with a strong cash cow. So how do we marry that? How do we marry innovation with established corporations? So a little bit about HelloFresh, since that's what we're going to talk about, since that's the example that I'll be mostly talking about today and how we built pet food for HelloFresh. HelloFresh is the most popular meal kit in the world. In last year, we delivered more than 1 billion meals worldwide. We have more than 20,000 employees and 7.6 billion revenue as of last year. And the company has a global footprint worldwide. But what a lot of people don't know is that HelloFresh Group isn't just HelloFresh. HelloFresh actually operates a lot of brands in a lot of different countries. Meal kits is just one of them. And even within meal kits, there are 4 brands that we have. And then we also have ready to eat where customers don't have to cook. The meals come prepared. And we also have new ventures. And new ventures is what I'm currently leading at HelloFresh. So for example, Good Shop is our protein subscription business where customers can get their monthly protein subscriptions delivered to their doorstep. And the Pets Table is a premium pet food subscription. So pet food. Last year, my team launched a brand new pet food subscription for HelloFresh, and that was the first time we did something for non-humans. It got some media coverage, and it was a very wild ride. And less than a year later, here we are. Less than a year after launch, we've shipped over 2 million meals for pet parents in the US, and 87% of our customers dogs prefer the Pets Table to their old food. And we're also doing pretty well on Trustpilot and on customer feedback channels. And we did all of that with very healthy unit economics. But how did we get there? How did we decide, okay, meal kits, and then boom, let's also serve dogs? So why should corporations invest in new ventures and verticals? Let's start with why they don't typically bother. So if the company is a corporation to begin with, chances are they did something right. They have that one winning product, and then they have a successful status quo at that point. So some of the reasons that we hear for why companies don't bother investing in other verticals or other business ideas, well, the cash cow works just fine. And because the cash cow works just fine, let's not split the focus away from the cash cow. Or sometimes we compare the potential revenue from a new venture against a mature cash cow, and they don't compare at all, right? Because one of them is already mature and the other one is new. So it makes the new business idea look so much less interesting. And then there's also the risk of cannibalization. Well, what if this new business idea actually kills our cash cow? And then there are also financial concerns, which are, a lot of them are short term, because in the beginning, when you invest in a new business idea, your short-term, it will be a drag on your short-term earnings on your P&L. It will mostly be a cost center before it starts turning a profit or make a significant dent on revenue as for the group. And the ROI timeline is also longer. We're playing the long game here. It's not a short-term investment. And add on to that, unfamiliarity. Humans are risk averse. We tend to be afraid of what we don't know. There's always a risk that this new venture fail, and that risk is very real. And then we don't know a lot about the new market that we're entering and a lot of other reasons. And all of these reasons, a lot of them are valid, and the odds are really high for a new venture. But why is it so appealing nevertheless? Well, it's all about risk diversification, right? At the end of the day, markets saturate. No matter how good your product is, at some point you will run out of customers, new customers to acquire. And that's why we need to expand total addressable market by creating new markets. We also, consumers change, their preferences change. For example, meal kits boomed. Meal kits were already very strong as a business, but they boomed during the pandemic because most people stayed home and then they had a lot of time and they couldn't go out. So the perfect recipe, right? Let's cook at home. But then after the pandemic and with all of return to office, people's lifestyle changed and return ready to eat became a lot more appealing as well because a lot of people don't have the time to cook anymore and they want something that is quick. And after the pandemic, we also see dog ownership rising a lot. I myself also adopted a puppy during the pandemic. And because of that, well, pet food subscription became that much more appealing. And competitors innovate. If you don't innovate, somebody else will. One of my favorite quotes is by one from our SVP product. And she said that it's better for us to cannibalize ourselves than for our competitors to cannibalize us. Words to live by. And products die. No matter how good of a product you have, at some point they die. Some of them last longer than others, but at some point they die. It's very dark, but yes. And there's also economies of scale. As a corporation, there is something that you're really good at. Maybe that's a big supply chain. Maybe that's a huge R&D team. Maybe you already have the tech for it. Use that, leverage that, because any new business idea tends to get cheaper because of the overhead that you've already invested anyway. And the last one is innovation loop. So new ventures tend to become a breeding ground for new ideas that the corporation has become too big to test. Or maybe it's become too risky for the corporation to test. And if we have new ventures to test these ideas, these validated ideas can then come back into the corporation and fuel the innovation loop for the corporation. And the reason I marked the last three in bold is because this is what I'm going to be talking about mostly during the talk. As for the first three reasons, I think there's been a lot of coverage on that. So first one, most products die eventually. This is a product lifecycle chart that you can also see. I quoted here from Harvard Business Review. But all products have a natural life cycle to them. They start with market development. At some point, they reach growth, and then they mature. At some point, they will decline. And for some, it will take 5 years, 6 years. Some trends are short-lived, but some products stay for decades. But at some points, all products decline. And that's why it's so important to diversify, because by creating more product lines, you extend your product life cycle, so you create multiple waves for you to ride. Maybe product A is at the maturity stage, then you have product B that's on the growth stage, and so on. So by making sure you have multiple waves to ride, you can extend the life cycle of your company too. One example is Apple. So if you look at Apple iPod, iPhone, iPad sales from 2006 to 2018, there was a very long period of time where iPod was carrying Apple through. And what iPhone, you know? And that period lasted until 2008. But at some point, iPhone slowly took more and more revenue share, and now we don't have an iPod anymore. Imagine if Apple found that winning product, that iPod, and like, okay, we're done. This is our winning product. That's it. We just continue iterating on the iPod, introducing new things on the iPod. There probably wouldn't be an Apple today. Sure, this doesn't account for Macintosh and laptops and so on, but you get the idea that all products eventually die. And if you don't have something in your back pocket, the company is also at a very high risk. So products die. Let's say, okay, Yarra, I'm convinced. How do you guys do it? Well, I can only share what we've done at HelloFresh. So the second one that I was talking about is leveraging economies of scale. So at HelloFresh Group, one of the reasons we chose pet food was we saw a sweet spot between the evidence of customer need and the fit with HelloFresh Group strengths and how we can leverage the economies of scale. And these two things are important. I don't think we would have entered the market if we only had one of them. So if we only had evidence of customer need. I don't know. Space travel is very lucrative now. There's a lot of interest in it, but there's a customer need. It doesn't really fit with our strengths. We wouldn't be very good at executing it anyway. Or if there's something that is very matching with our strengths, but it's not big enough of a market, then would just be very good at something that doesn't matter. So these two things go hand in hand. So what do I mean when I talk about evidence of customer need? Let's talk about pet food as an example, because that's our case study today. So evidence of customer need, there are multiple signals that we can look for. So the first one is, well, what's the market size? So as I mentioned, in the US now, 65 million US households have dogs. And out of those households who have dogs, the average pet ownership is 1.6 dogs per household. So they don't even have one dog, they have more than one, right? And well, dogs have to eat. Most dogs, all dogs have to eat. And the second one that we looked for as well is the competitive landscape. Are there competitors in the market? And in this case, we did see a lot of mature, established competitors in the market that have been at it for a while, also signaling the need for this product, and it has really found its niche. And the third one, we also looked at, is there a value add for a subscription model? Do customers need it as a subscription? Because ultimately, that's something that we're good at. And we thought, yes, after we did our research, we also saw that, well, pet food is one of the verticals where you need repeat orders always and at a higher frequency, because the average dog eats the same food for months and years. And then the last question is there value add for a direct channel? Do customers want it to arrive on their doorstep? And the answer is yes. As a pet parent myself, I dread going to the pet store and lugging 20 kilograms of kibble with me. So it does have a value. Well, what are we good at? Well, HelloFresh Group has an end-to-end fresh food supply chain. So given that we're entering the premium pet food subscription space where we compete against kibble and we offer a healthier alternative that is prepared and hand-cooked, well, we already have a fresh food supply chain. HelloFresh Group also has D2C playbook because they know very well how to deliver food directly to customers. Well, there you go. HelloFresh Group is also very good at acquiring customers digitally. Most of our customers we acquire through digital platforms. So check. We're also have been doing subscription management for years, and a lot of subscription basics are repeatable. How we process payments, how we do orders processing, all of these things are things that we can leverage. Additionally, we also gain the benefit of doing pet food because there's no cannibalization risk between pet food and our human food markets. Hopefully not. So there's even a cross-sell potential there. And we also have brand recognition. HelloFresh has been preparing human food for decades. And if you trust us enough to prepare your food, surely it becomes even more trustworthy to also prepare your the food for your dogs. And lastly, we are also very data-driven. We've had a very strong execution culture, also very strong experimentation culture, and all of this is a recipe for success for the business that we're trying to build. So economies of scale, check. The third point that I wanted to talk about was new ventures actually also create innovation loops for the group. And what does that look like in the case of pet food? So there is a lot of overlap, as I mentioned earlier, but there's also a lot of differences. So we see that the overlap is, well, it's a D2C brand, it's subscription-based, we deliver fresh food, but there are some key differences. For example, the average meal kit user is also the consumer. You pick what you eat, whereas the average pet food user and consumer is different. The pet parent chooses, but the dog eats. So now all of a sudden, we saw that our data model never had this distinction because, well, if Yarra orders, Yarra's getting it delivered and we're saving Yarra's profile. But now we have to have a pet parent as the person we deliver it to, as the person whose payments we process, but we actually need the dog's profile in our database. So now we started differentiating between the user and the consumer. And then serving size is another big difference that we have as an example. The average HelloFresh service we offer to all customers, and we have a standard serving size. So we would sell it for 2 people, for 4 people, for 6 people. But there is no such thing as the standard serving size for dogs. It really depends if your dog is a Chihuahua or a Great Dane. So now we actually have to ask that question up front because we are offering a premium personalized pet food subscription. So we need to understand the dog's weight and age and breed and all of that to make sure they get the best food. And because we have all of these unique needs and these new problems, we need solutions. And because we have a smaller scale and a separate platform, we have lower financial and technical risk. And if you put these two together, it allows us to innovate more and to create new solutions that might be too risky for the group as a whole. And this creates new validated capabilities, systems, and architecture that can then benefit the group as a whole once we've put that to the test and once the results are out. So one of the examples, I'll give you two. One of the examples of things we started within New Ventures that eventually benefits the group is, for example, we started getting a lot of customer feedback that they have more than one dog, as the data also proved to us. So how can we allow one customer to have multiple profiles with Pets Table? And we also saw the need that these profiles are managed differently because maybe one dog has finished their food and the other one hasn't, or you want different food for different dogs. One is a picky eater, the other one isn't. You want different proteins. And so on. So we started introducing this capability for one account to have multiple subscriptions underneath it. And the impact? Well, now by the way, it was successful. So now we're also starting to think, well, what if we can use multiple subscriptions to manage different family members' profiles? Or what if we can use multiple subscriptions to manage different product lines per brand? Another example of the thing that we've tested within New Ventures is physical product incentives. So this, FYI, was not launched by my team. It was launched by another PM within New Ventures. And the problem that we're trying to solve was that we had Good Shop, which, as I explained earlier, is our meat subscription brand. And we offer customers discounts upfront for their first box, second box, and so on. But after their discounts end, that's where a lot of customers typically cancel. And of course, we're trying to find product market fit, and we want to make sure that they will stay regardless. But this is still a problem within subscriptions. And so we thought, why not test adding an incentive for the customer so that with every single delivery, they will get something with us. And then we tested, well, what if we throw in free chicken wings for life or free bacon for life? And the results were really good. We saw that it also increased conversion rate and retention. And now we're testing this across other HelloFresh markets as well. So that's innovation loops. So we talked about all products die at some point. That's why it's important for new ventures to be established within corporations. We talked about the economies of scale. We talked about how this is not just a drag on short-term earnings and so on. And those are all true, but new ventures can also validate risks and new capabilities for the group as a whole. So what have I learned personally while building new ventures? I came out of it with 7 learnings that I wanted to share with you. So the first one is that the group's North Star metric doesn't tell the story of a new venture most of the time. If the corporation is successful and established, they typically have a North Star metric, and the North Star metric, more often than not, incentivizes scale. But a new venture doesn't have scale, and nor should it prematurely scale. So we can't compare what a 20-year-old can do with what a 4-year-old can do, right? If a 20-year-old can do the SAT and a 4-year-old can do the SAT, it does not mean that the 4-year-old is less intelligent, but we should be measuring them at the right phases of their lifetime. And that applies to new ventures too. So if we're just looking at the group's North Star metric to see if we should launch a new venture, we probably wouldn't, which is why you need executive sponsorship. A new venture can't be a 2-day hackathon. I think a lot of good ideas come out of hackathons, but a new business idea to find product market fit, it can't just be a 2-day hackathon, right? So executive sponsorship means investment as well, which is very much needed for product market fit. With the executive sponsorship, we can have and build small dedicated cross-functional teams for product market fit. So I'll give you an example. When I joined HelloFresh, I was actually a product manager for all of new brands retention. And so at some point, I was prioritizing features that would benefit the greater good of the group. But a new venture that is in year 1 to 3, they won't have the business case on a 52-week basis to ever win any business case prioritization. So we need to actually build for them and dedicate success entirely for them if we believe and want this venture to truly succeed. We need to move quick. We need to be as independent as we can and not wait for 7 other teams to deliver on dependencies that you need to achieve your product market fit. The fourth learning is to start small. So as I mentioned in my previous points, chances are you usually have a smaller team to work on these new ventures. And if you're using your already small team to work on 2 platforms, then a lot of your time you'll actually spend on feature parity. And working with one platform has allowed us to rapidly iterate and use our lean resources to build new ideas, discard ideas that don't work, and so on. And you'll move twice as fast if you focus on one platform. And once you've established your product market fit and you know the feature sets that work, you can very easily replicate this on the other platform. But doing it in the very beginning hurts your speed. The fifth learning is that data comes in all shapes and sizes. HelloFresh has a very strong experimentation culture. Every day there's an A/B test being launched somewhere. And this is something that I personally had to learn as well. When you build a new venture, chances are you usually don't have the scale to A/B test every single thing. And you need to be more comfortable with data that does not come in the format of an A/B test. And at the end of the day, all data is valuable. They just have different levels of confidence. And A/B tests are so good, and they have a very high level of confidence. But there are also other types of data that are just as valuable, and you have a different level of confidence. So we also have to work very well with customer feedback. I read every single customer feedback on Trustpilot, on Usabilla. We do customer product interviews. We launch customer surveys. Do they all have statistical significance? No, but they still are very valuable for us to find product market fit. The sixth one is avoiding premature scaling. So many startups fail because they scale too quickly. And while scaling is very sexy, oh, we have X million new users, or we are in X new countries, costs increase with scale. So if we haven't figured out how to make it work with a smaller scale, now if we're duplicating it and like 10xing the scale, it also means that your costs are gonna 10x. Sure, some of them you have like economies of scale, but make sure to be really conscious about scaling it only when the unit economics make sense. So try to make the business healthy rather than fulfill some vanity metrics that will ultimately hurt the success of the business. And my last learning is that evangelization is never finished. So yes, now we have teams dedicated to new ventures. And yes, we have the budget to build these new ventures and so on. But it's very easy for a new venture to get lost in the noise of the group, particularly when the group is already very good at something else or has a very big business somewhere else. And the new venture is not the group's bread and butter. So always tell the story of your new venture within the group, evangelize internally, sell the vision, because there will be time, no matter how independent your teams are, when you actually need something from other teams or from the group as well. And at that point, you've already told a very good story, a very good vision of your new venture. So in summary, the group's North Star metric usually does not tell the story of an early venture, which is why we need executive sponsorship if we want them to truly succeed. With the executive sponsorship and the investment that comes with it, we can build small, dedicated, cross-functional teams that lead to product market fit. And with a small team, let's start with one platform, as it allows us to iterate faster. And when we iterate, keep in mind that data comes in all shapes and sizes. All data is valuable. And while doing that, don't try to scale prematurely. That's a recipe for disaster. And after all of that, evangelization is never finished. There will be times when you need help from outside of your cross-functional team, and you need to sell the vision of what the new venture does. And so that's new ventures, right? Lastly, what if your company can't go all in yet? Well, what I presented, building new ventures internally, is just one out of the many ways you can have a venture strategy within a company. The level of involvement, there's a spectrum for everything, right? And there's also a spectrum for venture strategies, depending on the level of involvement. What we spoke about was internal ventures at the very high end of level of involvement. And by level of involvement, I mean dollars invested, management time invested. But there are other ways to invest into newer ventures. You could start with venture capital at the very far end, where it's the investments of money. And in between, there's all flavors of venture strategy. You could nurture another venture, you could spin it off, you could have a joint venture. So just because the company is not at a stage where you could build internal ventures yet, and it's not for every company, there are also other ways. So that is it. I hope that what I shared can be helpful for you if you're building an internal venture in your company. I'm also curious if you have had other experiences doing that. And PSA, we're also opening a staff product manager position for new ventures soon, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll quickly take over the sharing so that our attendees can also ask you questions. So you can follow the QR code and we'll be waiting for the questions to come in. And thank you a lot for such an inspiring talk. Coming myself from a corporate world, I know how challenging it is to building a venture inside and how difficult it is to push some topics and initiatives. I do wonder how you do the prioritizing for these initiatives. Any advice on this?
Prioritizing of initiatives within the venture or across the group?
Within the venture.
So we also have a North Star metric for the new ventures. And for us, for example, it's we focus a lot on profitability in the first years. So when we prioritize, we also look at which initiative will bring us closer to our goal. Because ultimately, it's not a matter of which idea is good or bad. A lot of ideas, most ideas are good, but which idea brings us closest to our North Star metric.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And just to give some more time to our attendees to write the questions, I'll steal the moment to talk a little bit more about our use cases and when product people can be engaged. So as I mentioned before, we do interim and fractional product management, also product leadership, and it can be permanent position cover. So we can jump in kind of as an FTE. It takes now a lot of time to find a good FTE, and sometimes it's even more than 9 months. So that's when we come in and can help you out. We also jump in for parental leaves and also for important and urgent initiatives. Sometimes it can be the case that company doesn't have enough capacity or not enough expertise for a certain initiative. And that's why that's when I think the consultancy can be the best and the fastest solution. And then we also do product coaching. We coach product management teams, also leaders, and we can also create and streamline processes and programs. Last but not the least, we also do discovery. So like from initiatives, products, features, etc. But we can also do an MVP and run a low or no code pilot. So everything you wish will be tailored for your product discovery as well. We have worked with a lot of B2C clients. As you can see, a lot of big brand names, also Zalando, Free Now, Depot, Back Market, Blinklist. Also, we serve B2B clients. And to sum it up a bit, we have worked with more than 200 cross-functional teams. We served 70 plus clients across startup Series A and higher to publicly listed companies and big corporates. We do have in-house and full-time employees, so product leaders and product managers. We're not freelancers. We're not a body leasing shop. So we do care about our employees and we invest in their career development and in their expertise. And last but not the least, we take care about diversity. So 62% of our team are women and 66 are in leadership. We try to, not we try, we do have a strong bias to promote within the company. And we actually, when hiring, we try to assess skills before CV. And I think that's how we manage to leverage the market and have the diversity figures change to better. So getting back to our Q&A, let me check the questions. Just a second. So first one, how many user interviews did you conduct before launch and what does the research process look like?
So I don't have the number off the top of my head anymore. The answer is tons. But what I would like to stress here is I don't think there is a magic number. And what's more important is that your data doesn't only come from one source, but other than user interviews, we also need to look at market sizing. We also need to look at quant data, consumer spend on pet food, trends of the industry, and so on. So sorry that I don't have an exact number off the top of my head right now, but I do want to stress that I don't think there's a magic number anyway. And at the end of the day, we need to work with all different types of data before launch.
Sure. And how do you balance the need for innovation with adherence to corporate guidelines and standards, especially with legal part and compliance? I know that it can be very tricky.
Yeah, so legal, everything we do is legally compliant. That is something that I think we don't try to wiggle around, but there are a lot of corporate processes that might not apply to a new venture. And in this case, we have to review them and see if this makes sense for us. So for example, some teams plan on a yearly basis for a new venture that likely wouldn't work because especially when you're in year one, you don't know your customers that well, you don't know your competitors that well, you can't have a year worth of roadmap. But for some teams that are managing multi-year processes in a corporation, that makes sense. So if we see processes that don't make sense for us, then we will also raise this with our leadership that in this case, we opt out.
Okay, makes sense. And then the next question would be, learning might be even more effective based on failures. Can you share an example when an HF new venture failed and why? So HelloFresh.
So we launched in Japan a few years ago, and that wasn't, in the end, that didn't meet our success criteria, but we also killed it early. So I think it's very important to learn from failures and also quit while you're ahead, understand which markets don't make sense for you, and pull out.
Okay. And then next question, what were the challenges or benefits you saw on the tech side, leveraging HelloFresh data, architecture, etc.? I'm assuming has both positive and negative sides.
For sure. So I'll start with the positives. We, from the time we started development of the pet food vertical until the time it launched, that was less than 6 months. And we were able to do that because we stand on the shoulder of giants. There's a team in HelloFresh somewhere that has already figured out how payment processing works. And payment processing is complex, especially for a subscription business with recurring charges. There's a HelloFresh team somewhere that has already built experimentation tools for us, set up Optimizely and all of these other tools that we just plug and play. So a lot of these things already work out of the box for us. That's what enabled us to launch so quickly. And in some cases, we also still, whenever there's a new HelloFresh feature that we can benefit from, we integrate that. Challenge? Well, sometimes it also means that certain changes that we want to do, if it touches upon other areas of HelloFresh infrastructure, that could take longer as well. But we are constantly reviewing our setup to see what makes sense and what we need to keep and what we need to change.
Cool, cool. And then moving on to the next question. How do you use data to forecast demand at different stages of product, and how accurate are these forecasts?
Hmm. Um, I don't know how much I can talk about that specifically, but one of the benefits of being a subscription company is that your forecasting is also, it's easier to predict your forecast as well. So we can see which customers still have their subscriptions active. And when the subscriptions are active, we also know based on historical data and A/B tests, the propensity that an order will be placed.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's satisfactory enough for sure.
Yes.
Okay, and then the next one, what does the process look like when getting from initial idea to approval for a new venture?
The process, the discovery was very long, and we also work with HelloFresh strategy team, and a lot of the work has been done for us as well in terms of market sizing, competitive analysis, and so on. So as I mentioned in the first question, we look at a lot of different types of data, right? So yes, we do qualitative user interviews, but we also buy market reports. We also look at consumer spending in the US and how it grows over time in certain categories. We look at competitors and how their revenues are growing over time. We look at market research of pet food or pet parents and where they spend their money. So it's a lot, all of that. And at some point, after we understood that, okay, this venture is worth investing in, we also started early prototyping, recruiting some customers for interviews and usability testing, and so on before we launched.
So basically, you prepared kind of a use business case and then started prototyping. Okay.
Yes, so the business case needs to be there because, as mentioned in one of the slides, if we're very good at it, but the business is not there or the market isn't there, then we'll be good at something that's not worth being good at.
Yeah. True. Okay. Then moving on, how does HelloFresh balance differentiation and innovation? And what's HelloFresh's view on resource allocation?
Um, so we have a very successful business with meal kits. Now, though, we are aiming to be a end-to-end food solution group. So we know that meal kits is not for everyone, and we want to be able to meet customers where they are. And if for some customers that means convenience, then we want to do ready to eat. If for some customers that means their dog's food, then we want to be there too. And innovation is very important to HelloFresh. The team that I'm part of is called TAM expansion, total addressable market expansion, and new ventures is just one part of TAM. We also have ready to eat. We also have a lot of other things. So the team size is huge. TAM expansion team size is huge. We have more than 50 people addressing just new markets on the tech side. So we do think this is something that is very worth investing in.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I think it's going to be our last question, taking the time constrictions. Thank you a lot for your questions and being super active today. I want also to thank Yarra for such an inspiring talk. It was very interesting to hear your point of view and also to see the HelloFresh showcase, how it can be applied. So it's actually doable. And I want to invite you to our next live stream happening exactly at the same time, same place on Tuesday. And we'll be hosting Sarah. She is the startup mentor, author, and tech marketing leader. So kind of similar in a way. Also working with ventures, and we'll be talking about leading upwards and how startup joiners can impact new ventures. So make sure to join this one. And yeah, as said, thank you for joining and active participation. Also check out our podcast, join Telegram for all the updates, and follow us on Meetup, not to miss other events of our community. Thank you all. Have a great evening and a week ahead, and then see you next week.
Thanks for having me. Bye.